Welcome to the Waves of Change podcast, where we aim to inspire the listener to awaken to their purpose and take the action required to live life on their own terms. My name is Darragh Byrne, confidence and mindset coach, speaker, entrepreneur and humanitarian. I will be sitting down with creators from all walks of life who grew through the waves of change in their lives to be making the impact in the world they are today. Dominique, welcome. Dominique, welcome to the Waves of Change. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on and to hear your story. I'm just going to do a quick introduction and then we can get cracking. All good?
Awesome. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
You're very welcome. So we acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of the country we are speaking on today. We recognize their continued connection to the land and waters and thank them for protecting this coastline and its ecosystems since time began. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all First Nations people who may be listening today. And Dominique is an incredible friend of mine. We work together, coach together, and been through two of the craziest programs, three of the craziest, including Angela, facilitators in all of the world. So her mission is to help you live life fully from a place of magic, love, and abundance. As a registered nurse and a certified transformational Tantra coach, she's a healer. Think Marvin Gaye, sexual healing. Labels aside, she saves and transforms lives. She believes that by blending science and spirituality, we can better understand our bodies, respect ourselves, and deepen our connection with our partners. That's why she uses a holistic approach in coaching to focus on harnessing the power of your body to master self-love. Ultimately, this self-love leads us to experience pure bliss of soulful connected love. Basically, she's the coach who teaches you how to get off the best while getting most out of life. Dominique, absolute pleasure to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. I'm looking forward to this powerful conversation.
Yes, I am too. Can you give us a quick, rundown of your childhood, where you grew up, and what life was like growing up?
Okay, great. Great question. I'm from Texas, and I'm actually from a smaller town in Texas called Lubbock, Texas. Also situated in the Bible Belt, so a lot of religious influence and such. And yeah, I grew up there, but I was always fascinated with sex and sexuality from like a very young age. I think I was 8 or 9. I started reading my mother's Cosmopolitan magazines with all the sex advice column and sex position tips.
Shit. No waiting around.
No waiting around. And then I remember, because I'm already in my 50s. So then I remember when I was a teenager listening to, Talk Sex with Dr. Ruth and being educated when I was very first learning about sex. And so it was really funny. So I've always been super curious on this topic for so long. And my mother was very sex positive. So she was really comfortable talking about sex. And at the time I had wished my mother would just be like a regular conservative mom. Like, I can't even take you to a PTA meeting. Like you're inappropriate. Can you just settle down? And then I realized later in life, she had already passed. She had me when she was older. And I was at a Playboy Mansion party and I was thinking to myself, wow, if I was here, she would be so excited that I'm here. And that's when it hit me that like, oh, this is why she was your mom. Because if I would have had a different parent, maybe I would have been more repressed with my sexuality. and with sex, and I wouldn't be living the path that I was living then. So then I had like an aha moment of like awareness of like, oh, I needed to have that environment growing up so that I'm comfortable talking about things that a lot of people aren't comfortable with. And I was a recurring guest on Playboy Radio and Vivid Radio, and as a nurse, and I was actually a ProDom also then. And I was just about to turn 40. I told my daughter, so I was in Texas initially, and I was like, my daughters were like maybe 16 and 20. And I was like, I think mom's about to have a midlife crisis. And I was like, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to go to Los Angeles. And so they did the whole like teenage eye roll thing. And then I took a travel assignment in Los Angeles, and I was working initially at UCLA in the neurotrauma ICU. And so then going into like understanding the brain even on a deeper level. And so now when I work with clients, I teach like neuroplasticity and how to rewire the brain for experiencing pleasure in new ways. So everything like was part of my journey. So it's really been like so much fun. And my daughters are like, oh, great, mom, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, now I'm modeling nude in LA. They're like, oh, great, mom. My younger daughter was like, she was 16 at the time, and now she's just turned 30. But at the time, she's like, don't you worry that the guys are going to bait to your photos on the internet, like masturbate? And I was like, as long as I don't have to watch them, I don't care. And she was like, so that was me. That's quite the journey.
Wow, incredible. And what a roller coaster of emotions for the kiddies, for
Poor
the young
things,
girls.
but they're okay.
Yeah, exactly. And just like a few things you said here, being especially, being open about sex conversations and stuff like that around what did you call it, Bible Belt in Texas. What was that like? Because in this world, it's like, thanks for bringing this, because in this world, like one of the biggest stumbling blocks for anybody taking action on a new dream, or ending a relationship or whatever it is the fear of judgment from others.
Yeah,
So
it was a very judgmental space being so
what was it like in
religious.
Texas, like being how you were being,
I was
your
just always
family?
I was always just free. I just gave myself permission just to do what I wanted to do from a younger age. And I'm just a huge permission slip and advocate for others to like think outside the box and really find out what their personal truth is, and not dim their light or play small based on the fear what other people think. And I think that helped me more even being a nurse. I started being a nurse when I was 19, and working in critical care and with people facing the end of life. I realized, a lot of the things that I'm worried about, I don't need to worry about. And, when people are taking their last breath and they're sharing their regrets and how fears held them back, I was like, oh, I don't want to end up like this. I only have this one life. Like, what am I going to make of it? And a lot of times, the very things that they were like living their lives for or to impress, or they were worried about what other people thought, well, those other people weren't at their bedside when they were taking their last breath. Those people weren't
Yeah.
even thinking about them or what they were doing. So I was like, why do you put your life on hold or pause to get the approval of other people that probably aren't even caring as much as you think? And if they are caring too much about your life, that's their mistake. They should be focusing on their happiness and what their journey is. A lot of times people will be distracted, like it makes them uncomfortable when we elevate or grow or think outside the box, or I say I just burned my damn box, right? And it can make them really uncomfortable, because then they're like, oh, you mean I didn't have to always live my life like this in this limited perspective and experience? I could have gone for something more. And then that is very confronting for them. But I'm just like, let me show you how it's done. So I've just kind of marched to the beat of my old drum since I was, early adulthood.
Yeah, I was really similar in that regard, especially at home, growing up in Dublin. We grew up in really like in the inner city, so working class was really rough. But people would tell you not to go to certain areas because they're rough and dangerous, and you don't know what will happen there. And I always had the curiosity, like, no, I'll go and find out for myself. and I'll learn, and then I'll come back with whatever wisdom I was still that was supposed to be delivered. But um, now I call it wanderlust because this has been my journey throughout my whole life of wanting to go to different cities, different parts of the world, different cultures, instead of accepting somebody else's perception of that reality or that culture. I went and figured it out for myself, and it's been incredible. But one thing you touched on here, and then for the listener, just take whatever note you want from this, but which is huge, really, really huge, because a conversation came up last weekend with a best friend of ours in regards to, um, the coaching industry being narcissistic. Because, we touch on, do you want to change, a career, a relationship, or heal the body of childhood trauma, or, just putting those sort of ideas out there. Obviously, because that book, the 10 biggest regrets of the dying, and here you are, who experienced that. Like, can you, speak a little bit deeper into briefly, what those regrets were like in real life?
Oh yeah, yeah, such a good question. Once for a while I worked at USC in the cardiothoracic ICU, also as a travel nurse, and one of the patients was on a wait list to receive a heart transplant, and I got really close to her,
Hmm.
and she had a fear of flying, and her husband had won a trip. She was an older woman with grandchildren. Her husband had won a trip on The Price is Right to go, like a trip somewhere, right? To fly, but she had a fear of flying. So she wouldn't fly. She didn't want to take the trip.
Hmm.
And so finally, he was able to arrange with The Price is Right. Could they change it instead of a flight to a cruise? So she was going to go on the cruise. And she packed her bags, and the next day she was supposed to go on the cruise, and it was delayed, having to wait for to make it this whole different plans delayed
Yeah,
the
yeah.
trip. And then she said, I went on the cruise. I mean, my bags were packed, and that next day before or that night before she was going to go the next day and all her bags were packed, she had a massive heart attack, and
Wow.
it damaged a lot of her heart muscle. And initially when I cared for her, I would have to, she was like really having a lot of stress in her home life and like raising her grandchildren, and a lot of things were really stressful for her. So I had her on the heart monitor, and I would be outside her room and she would be on the phone talking to her family and arguing, like getting a lot of, like, there was a lot of drama
Uh-huh.
and unhealthy shit happening, dynamics and stressors, right? And her blood pressure would skyrocket, and I had her on IV drips to control her blood pressure, and her heart rate would go wild. And I just had to go in there and just be really tough with her at first. I was like, I'm just going to have to take your phone from you. Like, you can't be on the phone having these arguments. Like, your heart is like not in good shape. Like, you're stressing your body out. Like, this is why you're here. You got to let this go. And then I took care of her for a period of time, and for a few months while she was waiting on the heart transplant. And since she'd had several children, there's a thing that happens with our RH factor and our blood factor every time we have a child, and how their blood and stuff can impact our bodies, and we can develop different antibodies. So since she'd had so many children, also, it was making it harder to match a heart for her
Uh-huh.
because of the different antibodies in her blood. And so she'd been waiting for a while. And while she was there in the hospital, she was in her 60s. Several of her friends died while she was there. And so sometimes I would take her for a walk around the unit, and she would share with me, like, oh, this person died and this person died. And it was a really hard time for her. And
Uh-huh.
then towards the end, I think she was feeling like, as she was waiting, she was there for over a month, maybe almost 2 months, where she was waiting for the heart. And I got really close with her. And she would, it's like she knew. One day we were walking around the unit, and the bed was empty in the ICU, and it was like she was worried that person had died. She was like, where did they go? Where were they? Were there? I was like, no, they got transferred out there. And she, as long as she didn't believe me, like, she was
Uh-huh.
just, I think she was fearing that death was coming for her,
Yeah.
right? She wasn't feeling as good. And then a few days later she died. And one of the things that she shared with me, though, was like, I wish I had just flown and taken that trip and not been afraid. I wish I would have just gone with my husband and had that experience. And I was like, oh. And then when
Wow.
her husband, she was so funny. I went to her funeral and her husband would say, oh, when I would come in there and see my wife, she would like tell him, she would try to get him to have sex with her.
No thanks to you.
Yeah. And she's like, you imagine what the heart monitors would have done then.
Oh shit, yeah. I
But
just
it's
start
just
spitting.
so it was just really so funny that she was really a lot of fun and a really amazing woman. But just her sharing her fears with me and how she held back, and she was like, I wish there were other things that I would have done in my life that I didn't do. And like we were we were all super attached to her. Like whenever that was happening, everyone coming in the next shift that was seeing that was happening to her when we were trying to revive her, like we were all just in tears. It was just heartbreaking.
Oh,
But that's just like one little story, but I've seen it a lot, or I've seen young children, facing cancer and dying, and the things that they went through to try to survive and hang on. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
So in this particular book, the number one biggest regret of the dying is not having the courage to live a life true to themselves
Exactly.
and living a life that everybody else wanted of them.
And that is the number one thing I would hear. Yes. Just her story really stuck out to me, like how she
Yeah.
expressed all that, because she went really deep into it, because I took care of her for a few months.
Yeah, so it's just like the importance of, we really, death is following us around all the time, that we can embrace it and have fun with it and just like do what really sets our heart and soul on fire, or be miserable and have these regrets later in life that we don't need to have.
Exactly.
So quickly, I'm a huge neuro linguistic nerd. Can you just briefly, before we go on, tell us about the neuro linguistics reprogramming in the brain, and how first of all your training on it, and then how you implement it into your coaching.
Okay, that's so great. Well, I mainly go into, like, sometimes I help male clients that have porn addiction as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is, like, the way we first start when I'm working with neuroplasticity, it's like we have these pleasure patterns. And when we're young, like we're teenagers and we start to masturbate, we don't want to be caught by our parents. So we learn to do everything quick to get from point A to point B. So we start pleasure, right?
That's brilliant.
So especially for males, and the more, you think with neuroplasticity, we have these grooves in our brain, and you go down that same pattern, that same, it's almost like a ski slope that you have. And the more you go down that same path, the deeper the groove is in the brain, and you're making that
Mm-hmm.
stronger and stronger. And that becomes like a slippery slope. Just when you're going skiing, if it's a path that's gone down a lot, you go really fast. But if you go off and make your own path, it's a little bumpy and you slow things down. So what I work with neuroplasticity and the new foods and the nutrition and the things that I'm teaching, and having a different relationship to pleasure, so you can have prolonged pleasure and create a new pleasure pathway, so that you can, for males, they can last longer, for females, they can experience more orgasms, and just have a different relationship with pleasure in your body, because your brain is your largest sex organ. And also with with linguistics, also, what are the words that you're saying to yourself, and like, what are you manifesting? Because we're constantly manifesting whether we're aware of it or not, right?
Uh-huh.
So so what are we manifesting, and what are we speaking into existence? Like, I could just had a session with a client. She's like, always, it's a challenge for a lot of women to have orgasms with penetrative sex, and on alone. And so she was just like, oh, a lot of times I tell myself, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like, I'm not going to be able to orgasm. I was like, but you're affirming that, you're setting yourself up. So it's just like the power of our thoughts. Thoughts become things. And the words that we use are really powerful. I also teach my clients how to manifest, and what you're speaking. I'm born on Halloween. So you got to think what you're speaking or like spells, because words, when you write words down, it's spelling. And so the power of your words. So you're creating spells. So what are you speaking into existence for yourself? And to have that awareness and be aware of the things that you say, the things that you consume. So it goes into a lot of levels and different layers of it. But I want to create people teach them Tantra techniques so you can experience full body orgasms, prolonged pleasure, so you can have that sexual healing.
Yeah, sexual healing. I
Yes.
love that song as well, by the way.
Yes.
And then, you know, with your one thing I took note of really quickly, ProDom, what does that stand for?
Oh, I was a dominatrix in Los Angeles for a while. And
What
that's
was
my
that like?
that's my curiosity happening again. I actually wrote a post today on Instagram about this. You have to look at it and see the
I
caption.
will, definitely.
But one of the things is I went to Los Angeles because I was curious. I wanted to learn how to perform burlesque. So I learned from a legend, Kitten DeVille. She and I are both born on Halloween. And I started doing modeling, and I look a lot like when I have my bangs cut like Betty Page. And so I did a lot of pinup, and pinup like cheesecake modeling is like so innocent. But Betty Page also did a lot of like BDSM fetish modeling. So then when I would start doing this pinup modeling, then different photographers that know like Betty Page is like, oh, but I want to do something like more edgy and fetishy. And so I ended up working with one of the top BDSM photographers in the world. And for 12 years in the heyday of Playboy magazine, he was the main centerfold photographer. And he would go, on these helicopters scouting locations for photo shoots and stuff like that. And he reached out to me, and he's photographed like a cover for a Jimi Hendrix album. He's photographed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like a lot of legendary people in addition to doing like this BDSM photography, right? So he reached out to me, and other models were so shocked. They're like, how are these people like, because he would charge people thousands of dollars an hour to shoot with them. How are these people reaching out to you? But I was just thinking, I think I have good karma. Also being a nurse for a long time and saving lives. I was like, I think I have some good karma points stacked up.
Yes.
But whenever I had done this shoot with him, he was just like, that there's a big thing. You're a nurse. There's a big thing of a medical fetish. I was like, really? And living in LA is not cheap. Okay. I have 2 daughters there with me. So he's like, yeah, like, and a lot of DOMs, they're squeamish or scared of blood. So it's hard for them to do it. Or then you got to think they don't know how to do sterile technique. And I actually have training as a nurse to take the role of an assisting surgeon. I've helped with open heart surgeries, brain surgeries. I've sutured and done all that. So my sterile technique is impeccable. So I was like, well, if a man wants to have a urinary catheter placed in him, I've done that for years using gloves and sterile technique for, not big money. And so if I do this with someone that wants that as a fantasy thing, I'm still using gloves. I mean, there was this one thing, a meme that goes around for Nurses Week is like, nurses, we've seen more penises than prostitutes, because like legit we've seen. And so like seeing a nude human body isn't shocking to me. And I've done a lot of things and put catheters in males and stuff and wore gloves. So I would always wear gloves in my sessions. And then I was like, well, it's better for me to put a catheter in someone than a dom who doesn't know sterile technique and could give them urosepsis or something damaging. And so I was like, oh, people like will pay me to do this, and I would get paid like $400 an hour. And this is over 10 years ago, right?
Wow.
And then one of the top things too was my clients, my top thing was like lawyers would want me to kick them in the balls. And I was like, so many people would probably pay to kick a lawyer in the balls. And I'm getting paid to do it like,
with high heels.
So,
get that, motherfucker.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. I wonder how many calories I'm burning while I'm doing this. So it was like really this curiosity that I have about human sexuality. And I never gave happy endings. I mean, plus I'm a nurse, so that I could lose my license. So, and I would always say like the disclosure, like, even I'm not using my nursing license while I'm doing this. I still have the knowledge of this, but I'm not taking the place of a medical provider, right? Like I had to be really on the up and up about it. But it was so fascinating. And I was just like really curious, like, oh, really, people, this is like a thing. All right. And it was just really kind of like entertaining for me in a way and really eye-opening. And I was like, oh, all right. And then I would see so much shame that people would have regarding their kinks or their fetishes, or like they would really want to tell their wives. And it's not like they were cheating on their wives because we weren't doing anything that was sexual. but they had to keep it a secret and hide that aspect of themselves. And I was like, oh, it's too bad that men can't just like talk to their wives about what their fantasies are, their fetishes are, so that they could just experience this. I had one client that his wife would know, because he liked to be beaten and hit, and she was like, I love you, I can't like hit you, but
Uh-huh.
I understand. He would be like, oh, my wife has seen your website, and my wife, says to say hello, and like, I was like, give her a hug for me. That's super cool that she allows you to
Uh-huh.
explore your things, and she knows that it's not anything sexual. It's just like this need that he had. But I did understand a lot with shame with people in that
Yeah.
experience. And so then I was in that mode when I discovered Tantra. And then I started exploring Tantra and understand energy. And I was like, I'm already around people a lot that are suffering in a hospital setting and taking
Uh-huh.
in that energy of pain and suffering. And if
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a dungeon somewhere inflicting pain on someone, like that's like way too much pain and suffering for me to be around. And
Yeah.
I learned from a Dom that had been a ProDom for 26 years, right? And I'm always about uplifting people. So I had asked her when she was teaching me, I said, like, is it okay if at the end of my sessions I say some positive, uplifting words to them? She's like, no, you'll ruin it for them. They don't want to hear that. But that's in my nature. Like, I'm really someone likes to uplift and help people. So then I
Yeah.
just kind of stepped away from it. I was like, oh, I don't know that that's really in alignment with my greatest good of what I really
Uh-huh.
want to do for humanity. But I learned a lot in the process, and
Yeah.
it was definitely an adventure.
I've got an actual question about that. Um, so in regards to the shame and you like not being allowed to, bring some positive energy and uplifting, I've got loads of questions here, but this one here, if that would ruin it for them, like, if they're coming in masked in shame, what are they walking out like?
Yeah, that's really good. I think they just felt more liberated that they could just be who they are,
Oh,
like that they
okay.
were allowed themselves to explore that, but there would be a lot of shame. Like, I once had a preacher come to me and he was just so afraid. Like, I literally had to give him a hug when he first came in, because I was like, this dude is literally going to just combust because he's so shamed about what he's doing. It's like, oh my God, if my wife and my grown sons knew this. And he was really petrified. And he's like, this to me is like a bucket list thing. It's like climbing Mount Everest. It's just something I've always wanted to
Wow.
experience. But he had a lot of shame about it. And I felt so bad for him. I was like, well, one, you're not doing anything wrong. We're not doing anything inappropriate together. Like, you're just going exploring a fantasy thing, but in reality, nothing's happening. So don't go and you don't go and tell your wife
Explode.
about all this because out of guilt, because you're just going to mess things up for yourself, because like, you're really not doing, we weren't doing anything inappropriate together.
Hmm.
He just had a fantasy about being a patient with some like really twisted nurse punishing him. And so that's what we did. But when people talked about this is really funny. The photographer was like, you could do really well in medical fetish. And I was like, wait, but I'm a nurse and I like never would want to hurt anyone. And then I started thinking, wait, as a nurse, I've done some really fucked up things to make them feel better. And I've had to restrain my patients. I've had to put needles in them. They've been like, no, please don't do that to me. And I'm like, oh, this is what you need, or else XYZ is going to
Yeah,
happen. Like, we
yeah.
have to do this. And so I'm like, so it's not that much of a stretch. And then another thing too is like, I did a lot of like foot modeling. I have really pretty feet. So a lot of people have foot fetish and they would
Yeah.
want to worship my feet. And so I remember a nurse that I worked with at USC, she's like, just like from the South, the sweetest girl next door. And she just was like, I really love you, but I just can't believe you go and do this. And so I was going to go to like this foot worship party where people would pay there were several like DOMs that had really amazing feet, and people would be paying to like worship your feet or massage your feet, right? And so I was like, oh, after work today, I'm going to get paid to go get my feet massaged and stuff, because other nurses would go pay to get a foot massage, but I'm getting paid to get my feet massaged, right?
All right,
And
right.
so I was like, I'm going to this place, and it's like this big like foot worship party and da 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 da. And she was like, oh my gosh, like, isn't that so degrading? That sounds so degrading, right?
Degrading.
And I said to her, I said, you know what, as a nurse, we like literally wipe shit off of people's asses. You don't think that's degrading? Like, you don't think what we do is degrading? Like, come on now, get real with it. So
It's incredible, isn't it, to change a perspective? Like it's just fucking mental.
yeah. So it was interesting. It was a really eye opener. And then just seeing the pain, because I felt like some men felt so like lit, you know, like maybe they were really overweight or didn't feel attractive enough, or some people would want small penis humiliation, like to be
Mhm.
made fun of. You know, it was just the wildest thing. I was like, oh, really? And I would feel like they felt like, I was like, I sense on a level, and I'm very intuitive, like they felt like they didn't deserve like affectionate touch, that they just felt like the only way they could have a woman or a beautiful woman touch them would be like to inflict pain. And I was like, that just really broke my heart. I was like, oh, this is heavy. Like, I didn't like that aspect of it,
Mm.
you know? And I was like, oh, that just makes me feel so bad for them. So that's why I really love what I'm doing now, because I understand all those things. And I'm like really
Yeah.
passionate about freeing people up from the shame. And earlier this week, I had a sexual shame masterclass, because we can have so much shame about our sexual energy, but we're literally created from sexual energy. So there should be no shame in that. Well, this is the life force energy that brought us into existence. So why is there so much shame about it?
Yeah, huge, really good. I've got millions of questions that are just coming through my mind right now. Can you quickly tell us what BDSM is, and then and then over into the Playboy Mansion?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. It's like bondage, discipline, and sadomasochism, and just ways of fetishes of kink and like inflicting pain and pleasure and all of the things in between, and different fetishes that people have.
Mm, beautiful. And then before you go to that, actually, the brain being the biggest sex organ. I have never heard
Mhm.
that before. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, like actually orgasms start in the brain. So for males, if you start to have a meditative practice, you'll actually be able to last longer in bed. The longer you're able to maintain a meditative state, the longer you're able to last. Because a lot of times what messes us up is we get distracted by the stressors of the day, or we're not fully connected to the body. We're in our thinking mind, or we're being performative with sex, or we're overthinking things, or we're getting stressed out, or allowing anxiety to trip us up. So Tantra gives you the tools to really disconnect. So you're not just approaching everything from your overthinking logical mind, that you're able to disconnect and drop into your body and can start to connect to your body through all of your five senses and experience prolonged states of pleasure and bliss, which can be deeply healing and
Wow.
empowering.
Wow, that's incredible. Like, so I just got a vision as you were speaking, of the spotty teenager, probably me back in the day. But by the time they actually get into the action, they've already finished it because they're in such a rush in the mind.
Right.
The scaredness of getting it
There's a lot
right,
of
and
pressure on males for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So when did you start hanging around the Playboy Mansion?
Oh
And
my gosh.
how many?
That's when I first went to LA, right? I was actually, so there on my 40th birthday. Maybe not, maybe when I was like 39, I
Hmm.
started going to the Playboy Mansion, and I went to parties like several times. I went to some of the Halloween parties and stuff. And I remember I was like, this is so lame, because I remember I was seeing someone at the time too. And before I met him, I was actually going to Playboy Mansion parties on my own. And then he would also enjoy going. And I would just be like, some nights I would be like, oh my gosh, do we have to go to the Playboy Mansion party tonight? I would just rather stay home. I mean, if that tells you how many times I've been to the Playboy Mansion party, because I was like, this is stupid, because so many people will be like, are you kidding me? Why are you not at the Playboy Mansion party? But when you go to those parties, you have to like sign a waiver. You go to some fancy hotel in downtown Beverly Hills that has a shuttle that picks you up, and you have to be on a list, and then you have to like sign waivers again, and then be transported to the location. And so there's a lot of like things that you have to
You
do to
don't
get
just
there.
rock up and jump out the taxi.
Yeah. So it's like, oh my God, that's just, was just so much. I can just pass on that today. Like, that's too many hoops to jump through to get there.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, I just want to chill at home and I can be
Um,
quite the homebody too. So as much as I'm adventurous, there's that part of me that likes to just like chill out.
Just
As well.
relax. So what would the parties be like? What goes on the other side of the gate, the list? Um,
Oh my gosh. Well, I never saw anything like, people may think people are having sex. Probably can go out on the grounds. It's a big place and have sex behind some bushes somewhere. I don't doubt that that happens, but it's not like a free for all party like that. But I went to like the SB award parties and some other parties that would be there. It would be a lot of fun. And it's just like a lot of, they have like amazing food, and it's like, and they have an amazing bar, and it's like open bar, which I don't drink, but you can get all the drinks. Like, you're not paying for anything, you get all this amazing food. And then there's like all these beautiful people. And then, Hugh Hefner would be there at the parties in his like pajamas with his girls in like a different like area. And then he had like, he had like monkeys in cages, which isn't really cool to have, but he did, like, he had this whole like this is a whole like fantasy land area.
persona.
And then getting to go play and like play pinball in the game room and play pool and go through the grounds was really pretty cool. And then you just would meet so many people, and the Halloween parties are really fun. There's a famous artist, Olivia, that does a lot of the art for decades for Playboy. And I actually have a photo of me with Olivia. And then I had manifested being friends with Masumi Max. And I actually went with her. She's performed at the Playboy Mansion before, at the pool before, and actually went with her to one of the Playboy parties. And it is a lot of fun going into the grotto. It's like very nostalgic, and you're just
That
like,
was
oh my
my
gosh,
next
so many
question.
people. Yeah, to go into the grotto and to be there and hang out was like, wow. You just think of how many people have been there in that space for
Yeah.
so long. And then one time I was dating someone, and it was the SB Awards. It was back when Kim Kardashian was dating Reggie Bush, and I have quite a curvy body, so I always say I'm like riding on 42-inch rims because my and so and so I was there, and I was dancing with this guy I was dating at the time, and I'm dancing, and we're right on the dance floor, and at the edge of the dance floor is like Kim Kardashian with Reggie Bush when she used to date him, because it was from the SB Awards. And then Khloe Kardashian sitting there with another man, I'm not sure who it was at the time. And I'm dancing, and he was like laughing. He was like, Kim Kardashian keeps staring at you because she's not good at dancing. He's like, she keeps watching you dance. And I was like, awesome.
Twerking, and twerking.
Yeah.
And like, the grotto, like the Playboy Mansion is literally, it's an iconic part of history,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
history.
And I remember back in the day, my grandfather was probably born in like 1910, 1913, like a long time ago, because my mom was born in 1933 and then had me later in life. So my grandfather would subscribe to Playboy magazine. I remember one time my nephew, we would call my granddad Bubba, and my nephew one time was like 5 years old, and he was like, Bubba, you like looking at naked women, don't you? But he had a subscription to the magazine. So it was like really funny as I was older and I was there. I was like, yeah, of course I'm here. Like, how wild would it be? And it's funny. I got to go when I lived in LA, like I went to different movie premieres, and I actually have a funny photo of me being in a movie premiere for Invictus, which was produced by Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Which, back in the day, my mom had a huge crush on Clint Eastwood. When he was younger, he was such a handsome man.
Yeah.
And at the time I was dating someone, when we come out from the movie thing, he's just like, let me take a photo of you. And I'm like, okay. And as he's getting ready to take the photo, coming into the frame is like Clint Eastwood. He's totally coming in to hit on me. And then he turns and sees my guy taking a photo of me, and he just turns and walks away. But my guy got the photo of us together.
Oh, wow.
It was like
Brilliant.
so funny. And I tell my friends, I was like, not that I would be with Clint Eastwood, but if I did, I would be like, Mom, this is for you. This is for you.
Oh, brilliant. I love your Texas, deep Texas accent, or when you put it on. It's fucking hilarious.
Well, I pick up on accents a lot. And so I had moved, like when I first met you, I moved from Texas like 13 years ago. I went to LA for 6 years, San Francisco for 6 years. And when I would be in California, people would say after a period of time, they'd be like, sometimes the accent would come out.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, where's your Texas accent? But when I'm in Texas, before I moved to California, people
Right.
in Texas made fun of they'd be like, Texans would be like, your twang is killer. Like, you should get your voice box changed. Like, I had a really thick twang. And now it's funny because I pick up on accents. And now that I'm back, it's popping through more. So it's funny.
Yeah,
But now I
yeah.
don't mind it as much.
Yeah, allow it to come because it's hilarious for anybody listening. Me, Dom, and a couple of other people in, an organization we worked with and for. We used to send each other really funny videos. Dom is the queen of pun jokes.
Oh yeah,
So
I love puns. I'm a sucker for puns.
yeah, incredible. So quickly, in regards to the name of the podcast is called The Waves of Change.
Yes.
Before we go into the tantrics, the transformational tantra, and shame was a great one to come up. So before we go through those things, for you, because I was with you during your transitional period, and there was a time, I can't remember the length of time, but there was a period of time where you were clinging on to your old career.
My
Um,
nursing career, yeah.
yeah, can you explain about how what first of all why you were clinging on, and then the emotional and mental transformation you needed to go through in order to make that change. One of my friends, just quickly touch on, was a guest the other day, and he congratulated on me taking my change like it happened like that, but it took me 3 years to come into alignment with what I do today. So can you let us know about yours?
Yes, that's such a great question. I think because I had identified with being a nurse for so long. I started nursing school when I was 18, and in my profession, I was like at the top of my
Hmm.
game. And I was working in one of the best, like in the best hospital in the country with the best benefits for nurses. Because in Northern California, they started, nurses would strike a lot and go on strike and advocate for better pay and better working conditions. And so I got the best pay, the best benefits, the only hospital in the country that still had a pension plan for nurses. And so it's like the golden handcuffs. And so I only had to work 24 hours a week. And I was in a real cush area of the hospital and recovery room at the time where I didn't have to work weekends or holidays. And I was getting paid really good money and great benefits. So it was that challenge of like totally letting that go to go full into my Tantra coaching. And I think it's kind of edgy to be, as a coach, I'm really great as a coach, but when you're first learning about coaching and you're really strengthening your craft, I think it's the ego comes in, and it's like, oh man, like as a nurse, like I would have doctors come and ask me for advice or things to do for the
Hmm.
patients. And I was very well respected. They'd be like, you should have been a doctor, because you really know your stuff, right? So I think to be at the top of my game as a nurse and then to come as a coach and not be at the top of my game, I
Hmm.
think that that's where my subconscious mind was playing out that I wasn't aware of, because I was like, oh, now I have to be new. I have to start being the beginner at something.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
don't have everything figured out. And I have to figure out how to build my business. And I don't have the comfort of a steady paycheck. Because as a
yeah,
nurse, you always have a job, right?
yeah, of course.
And so then just thinking about it helped me a lot, because I had a conversation with Zion Kim, our coach, and he had shared with me, because I was like, I make so much money as a nurse. I could have an assistant at because I make almost 100 an hour as a nurse. So I was
Hmm.
like, I can pay an assistant 10 to 20 an hour to do things while I'm at the hospital and cover that and then some. And then on my days off, then coach my clients and do other things, right? And then I can still have my benefits and all these things. And he was like, are you looking at energetically what it's costing you to switch gears from that to this?
Yes,
And he was
yes.
like, you're already doing so well, but it's like it's like you're trying to climb up a mountain with like a backpack of like 40 pounds of weight. And if
Hmm.
you would drop that backpack, your trajectory, the way you could take off, he was like, so you're looking at what your job is giving you financially wise, but you're not looking at what it's costing you energy wise. And I was like,
Yes,
that was a big aha moment for me.
that's
I was like,
huge. That is huge.
So then I said, okay, I'm going to set a date to where at least I go like where I could go maybe per diem, where I could make my own schedule, only work 4 shifts a month and have like something dependable to pay rent. Cause rent in San Francisco is not a cheap thing. It's like 4,000 a
Yeah,
month.
yeah, they went. It's gone through the roof, eh?
And so I was like, all right, I'll do that. And I was like, I messaged Zion. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a date of 3 months from now of like that I'm going to be doing this new thing. And I wrote it on my work board, my whiteboard for work. And it was there with a whole bunch of quotes and a whole bunch of other things I need to do. And then this date. And I kind of had forgotten about it. And then one day, I don't know, I just decided I was going to do this other coaching with them. And I was like, you know, if I do this, I should just go all in and stop playing small. And, you know, I should just move back to Texas so I can let go of my nursing career because I won't have high rent and I can like really focus in on this. And so I calculated like based on when I wanted to leave, when I would need to give my 2-week notice. And I went to the hospital this day because I was like, I couldn't reach my manager by the phone. I was like, I don't want it to be a day late because I have a flight booked and everything. I got to get out of town. So I go to the
So you went from
hospital.
holding on like this to like, get me the fuck out of here like that.
And I had the wild thing is like, because of the union, if I would kept waiting and asking my manager, when is there a per diem position? When is there a per diem position where I could always make my own schedule and only commit to 4 months is my minimum of working a month instead of it being 12 shifts a month. I could go to 4 and then I would make more money an hour. And I kept asking and asking because I was like, oh my gosh, if you don't give me this soon, like I'm just going to have to quit in my mind. But I kept asking. And if they give a job posting, they have to do it in the department first and then into the hospital and then into the hospital system. There's a sequence.
A protocol. Yeah.
Right. So I literally went into the hospital that day, gave my notice, went home, looked at my board, and the day that I gave my notice was the day where I had written on my board 3 months before.
Wow.
And I was like, because I was like, I'm curious what that date is. And then the next day, my managers posted, or they had posted earlier that day, a position that I've been wanting. And my coworkers knew I had been wanting that. And they're like, you can appeal this. They are giving it to someone that's not in the department. You can appeal that. They should have let you know first. And you can, revoke your resignation and just stay here. And I was like, no, this was a sign from the universe. Like the universe.
Yeah.
For
So
that
you
to be
missed that
available.
opportunity. Yeah.
Exactly. And
I
I was like,
love
no,
it.
I was like, no. And so some of the people I work with that know what a great retirement plan I can have. And they're like, are you sure you want to do this? And I was like, no, I'm sure. And even when I came to Texas, I've had a nursing license in Texas before. I didn't even get a license here because I was like, it's like the burning of your boats. It's like, I don't want that to be an option because that way I keep showing up powerfully in what I'm so passionate about.
And quickly, can you, let the listener know, once you made that decision, what would you say, the laws of attraction or the manifestation or being in alignment with your purpose, how quick the things happen from then?
Yeah, I wasn't even able to, like, I was so busy. I just decided I wanted my books. I'm a big bookworm to come with me. So I shipped all my books to Texas and I only took 3 suitcases of items and with me. And my daughter stayed behind that was an adult and she the things that were in my home, she gave them away or sold them. I was like, you can keep the money, like whatever. The car, I don't care. Like I'm done. I don't want to, because driving from California to Texas is torture. I was like, I don't want to make that drive. Nothing that I have is worth that drive. And and so I was busy like packing things up and everything. And the universe was kind of pushing me out of where I was living because there was being more crime in my neighborhood and my home was being targeted. It was like the universe was really making me uncomfortable where I was. And I was like, all right, I get it. And I even had to move my flight up sooner where I didn't even get to say bye to some of my close friends because it was just like things were getting really dangerous and where I was living. And I was like, the universe was like really pushing me out of there. And so when I arrived in Texas, I was settling. I wasn't doing a lot of discovery calls. And then I had the biggest month I ever had in my business. And I made like $40,000 that month.
Wow.
And it was like the universe showing me like, yeah, when you show up for yourself and you commit to yourself, like, yes, this is following you. And that
Magic
was really
happens.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, let me as well just acknowledge you. And you know, I've spoken to loads of people so far on the podcast, and your level of professionalism was like, oh my God, I need to do so much more. You know, and you sent me your media kit, and you know how I
Yes.
contacted, and I was like, fucking hell, I need to get back to work on the back end. So celebrating you for that. And I
Thank
was
you.
present with you during that big massive transformation. So celebrating
Yes. Thank
all
you.
of that again.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, as Zion spoke, like just quickly touch on, you know, one, we earn money and we earn a living, which is great in the jobs, and there's nothing wrong with whatever your life choices are. Like, you know, they're your choices for you, like this for the
Mm-hmm.
listener. Um, but when we talk about how much we're earning and we have this house and X, Y, and Z, it's like, yeah, fine. But the energetics of that, are you really happy? Does how you live bring you joy? You know, so the financial reward is great, but is that really what you're earning, or is there an energetic weight or anchor holding you back at the same time? So just to, you know, be aware of that. And if you were to die tomorrow, would you be happy in the circumstances you're in today? And that's a loose question. Nobody's wrong. Nobody's wrong in any regard. So Dominique, for you, like then, can you tell us about transformational tantra?
Yeah, that's so. I had such an amazing healing with Tantra. That's how I had my awakening. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just really approached sex more like Samantha from Sex in the City.
Yeah.
And I'm a Scorpio, and in LA that I was modeling, and all the other models, I was like a kid in a candy store, and I was like, oh yeah. And I was very in I was very in my masculine energy. And I was just like, I wasn't wasting any time. I was like, oh, you're hot. Like, I kind of interviewed them on the phone, like, what is your sexual style? What do you like to do? Like, how are you about sex? Are you like uptight about sex, or like what is your thing? Like, and see if like I felt like there would be a vibe, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, we're totally gonna hook up on it. I mean, just get the condoms. I'm allergic to spermicide. Don't get anything with spermicide. You know, like it's happening. Where I was like DTF, like let's just go. And and then sometimes guys will get their feelings hurt because I might not call them back or want to be with them again. And they would like, I would have guys like write my name on their body and take photos and be like obsessed just after one time of being with me. I was like, whoa. And then
Yeah.
I was just like not wanting to, I was just like, if I, like you got an audition, if you didn't get a call back, I'm sorry, like it wasn't the vibe. And I could really be more like a dude, but I was very my
Uh,
masculine. But Tantra helped me to embrace my feminine energy. We all are a mix of masculine and feminine.
uh-huh.
But for me to let go of the armor and the control and that illusion of control and not feeling things, right? Because I thought that made me feel powerful, but it was really keeping me from allowing love and intimacy and connection in. It was really me being guarded and being like, kind of like, I'll fuck you over before you can fuck me over, kind of an attitude, which I think in dating these days, you can see that a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but I ended up being with someone who had studied Tantra for a year and had dated a Tantra coach. And he had mastered this high level, which I guide my clients in, this peak performance for males of being able to separate your orgasm from your ejaculation. So it can be multi-orgasmic and have stamina for hours. And when I had an experience with him, I didn't know he'd studied Tantra. A decade before, I had wanted to learn Tantra, but I thought you had to have a partner to begin, which you don't. That's a misconception. It starts with you. And then once you start mastering these techniques, then you can add a partner in.
mm-hmm.
But when I was with him, I had a period of pleasure and intimacy for over 5 hours. And we weren't on any substances or anything like that. And if you're familiar with chakras and Kundalini energy,
Yeah,
it's like the energy in my chakras, like it just was like an awakening, and it went through and opened up my third eye and my crown chakra. And I just like had a whole new level of awareness and this aha moment. And I was like, whoa, like, and I was already, at this time, I had already been in Playboy radio a lot. My friends were already telling me I should write books about sex, or like that sex position you taught me saved my marriage. I was
uh-huh.
having better sex than like 90% of my friends, right? And when I had this experience, I realized that I had merely been scratching the surface, like the tip of the iceberg of what was truly possible for me and the true
Mm.
power of intimacy and our sexual energy to provide us with a lot of amazing healing pleasure, and letting go of the shame and really tapping into the power that we have in those moments. And my life was forever changed. And I remember just feeling like regret in a moment, like sadness that most of my friends and that most women in this planet will never experience this in their lifetimes. And I was just really passionate about, I need to figure out, I don't know how to begin to tell my friends how this happened. So I need to study and learn this so I can share this with others. And like now one of my clients, he's having better sex at 60 with his wife than when they were 30. And he was prescribed Viagra before we started working together, and it was failing him and he wasn't able to have intimacy with his wife. And he's like, I feel so much. He was like, he told me on one session, he was like, I had an hour-long marathon with my wife on Monday before work. She had 6 to 8 orgasms and was totally blissed out. He was like, and I was ready to go again the next day. He goes, I feel so much power in my penis. I wish I discovered this 15 years ago. So I still get messages. I get these cute text messages from him, and his wife would be like, I want to thank you. I want to thank you. My wife wants to thank you. Yeah. And so he told me, he was like, I helped him deal with a old familial wound where he felt like his mother never loved him. He hadn't been able to grieve the loss of his mother. He was able to cry for the first time and realize she did love him. And he was able to let go of a lot of anger. He's like, my anger has all but dissipated. And he was like, and now I am showing up as a new person to myself in my life, and I'm a new partner to my wife. And that's after 30 years of marriage. And I love that. Like, that's what lights me up the most about doing this work, is helping people have deeper connection and intimacy. And even for males to understand how powerful they can be, but they've been dumbed down by what they see in porn, because that's very performative, and you can do so much more and experience so much more with the person you love and provide immense pleasure for both of you if you just can tap into these gifts that you really have.
Quickly, two things. One, we're gonna cross over into the same thing, but when you said you had 5 hours of pleasure with this guy, that can you give us an explanation of the feeling and what was going on for you during those 5 hours?
Yeah, it was
sure,
like
many women want to know.
Yeah, that's such a great question. Because of the fact there's a lot of times, like, we're the feminine, we're very intuitive, right? So there's a lot of times that I could sense when I would be with a lover that if I really went full speed ahead on my turn on, that I would push them to the point of no return. It would be game over and they would ejaculate and then we would be done. So there's times where I have to kind of like be in like a cycle or a roller coaster with my pleasure of like going in and then kind of restraining and holding myself back. And this person didn't share with me that they had these skills, but I could just tell by the way his confidence was and his energy, the way he carried himself. And he was really big into meditating he's a meditation teacher as well, but he used to be a pro football player. So total switch, right? But he like was able, like, I could just tell, I was like, that he was unshakable. I was like, I can literally have so much pleasure. And I could just sense that he was not in his mind worried at all that I was going to have him ejaculate before he was ready. And so I was like, oh, I can really fully play out here, and fully experience this. And then he was just almost like, it was this connection of, a lot of times, sometimes women, we can feel like men are just using our bodies to masturbate in, and the men are distracted in their fantasies. He was really able to be, because he has a meditation practice, to be fully present and dropped in and connected with me. And it was like he was just like honoring me as the goddess and allowing me to just keep having these waves of pleasure. And he was just there to like hold space for that. And then I was able to experience these prolonged states of ecstatic bliss and keep going up and up and up to experiencing this level of pleasure I never had been able to tap into before. And with that, that's when that transformation happened. That I was able to have this like epiphany, this moment of such pleasure that really shook me to the core of my being and had me have this whole other level of elevated consciousness. Because really, Tantra isn't a tool for sex. Tantra is a tool for expansion, for expanding your consciousness. Like a lot of the Buddhist monks and stuff would use these practices. There's a Buddhist Tantra techniques of using these to get in these Zen states and be deeply meditative and know how to move their energy and open up, unblock their chakras so they have this like flow and they're in these flow states and this elevated consciousness. The thing is, when you're able to experience this within yourself, you have this high level of self-mastery that you're tap into the subtle energies and you can connect to your lover in a different way and you become a better lover. And your sex is enriched because of this skill, but it's not even the purpose for it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to tap into like this other awareness. And then whenever we finished the next morning, you know, and I was with him the first night I had met him, like we had conversations and phone conversations. We both found out we were from Texas.
Uh-huh.
But we were living in LA, which was interesting to meet that way. And he had messaged me and we had some conversations because we had a lot in common. And I joked that he was supposed to also teach me yoga. He used to even give Paris Hilton yoga lessons. And he was going to teach me yoga, but I joked that I never got past downward dog. But after the first time, that next morning, he was like, I had to go run errands and stuff. And he was like, well, will you come back here tonight? And I was like, is that a question? I'm totally here for this.
I'll be still here when you get back.
Yeah. And so I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, like maybe that was a fluke the first time. And the next night, like the whole thing happened. And then next night, after a whole 5 hours again of pleasure, I just sat up in the bed and looked him in the eyes. And I was just like, I want to clone you and give one of you to all my friends. Because I just literally didn't know another way. And that's when he shared with me. And he was like, you're like naturally, he actually introduced me to his ex-girlfriend. She was my first Tantra teacher because he was like, you're naturally tantric without even knowing what it is. I think it's something I experienced like in past lifetimes, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was just really changed everything for me. And I just really went inward and was like, oh, okay, if this is possible for me and I never knew this, I could experience this. What else have other untapped potentials lie within me? Pleasure potential, all kinds of potential that I have a limited viewpoint and I have limited myself from what I can experience. So, you know, that just set me on this journey. It's like Alice in Wonderland going down the rabbit hole. And I was like, I must know more about this because it literally changed my life. And my adult daughter, who's 33, she will say, she actually shared in front of one of group coaches. She was like helping me with my Zoom. I was doing group coaching on something. And she was like on my Intro to Tantra course. And she said, I wanted to share something during your group call, but I didn't want to she didn't want to step on my toes. I was like, well, next time you can totally share. And she's like, what I want to share is that for so long, I would see you because my mother was alcoholic. I had traumas and things that I had been trying to heal from and generations of alcoholism. Also found out in my ancestry that I'm part Irish, which is probably a lot to do about it's my Irish side of the family. And so I would always read a bunch of self-help books. And she's like, you would always read these self-help books and you would read them and you were trying to do better, but then like you would still be the same. You would still be the same. She was like, it wasn't until Tantra that you started to change. And it was like Tantra gave me these tools to start healing these emotional wounds that I had and begin my healing journey. And then one of my friends was like, sex for 5 hours, that sounds horrible. Well, when you think of like, if the sex is like what you see in porn for 5 hours, yeah, that would be boring.
Yeah.
For the feminine, but I was like, it was so much pleasure and bliss. And you know how they say time flies when you're having fun? It's like I knew a lot was happening, but literally it felt like maybe 20 minutes or an hour had gone by. And then you look at the clock and you're like, what the heck? Like what happened? You know, so it's like really it's like time just stops in those moments and you're really so deeply connected with that person. And it's just this dance of you with this energy and just experiencing wave
pure
after wave of
bliss.
amazing pleasure. Yeah.
Pure bliss. And the 60-year-old couple, and thanks for all of this. This is mind blowing for me. I'm already like, babe, I think we're gonna need to sort this out here.
Amazing.
We need to get on a call with Dom. But the 60-year-old and all of the underlying issues, and your mastery is tantric sex and a bunch of other stuff. But a lot like, yeah, perfect example, the Viagra, right? So here's a guy that wants to get it together and he thinks it's because he can't, whatever reason, so he goes and gets these little quick fix things, that don't work. Can you just highlight quickly, and I think it might be part deal with shame as well, coming and for men, to say, oh look, I've got this tantric sex coach, or we've got a sex coach, and maybe this is my perception, right? This is not absolute truth, but
Right.
it may be a bruise or a dagger to the ego to admit that they need help in the bedroom, and again, as you mentioned, it's not sex first and foremost. It's about controlling your energy and all of the expansion of your energy. But can you speak about one, not the Viagra as such, I don't care about that, but being the surface, trying to fix the problem from a surface level angle, and then the actual reality of the trauma that's stored in the body is what's really causing the the breakdown in whatever's going on in the system. So stored trauma.
I love that. I love that. And a lot of times if you look in, I even have this book right here. If you look at this book, it's by The Secret Language of the Body by Ines Segal. If you look at different things that are happening in the body, if you look under erectile dysfunction, one of the things is having there's several things in there that can contribute to that. But one of them is having a trauma with the mother. The mother wound really can impact, right? People. And so whenever you think about it, I know that it's challenging. I think males go into when females will talk about sex and give each other points and tips and things like that, because I think it's more challenging for females to have orgasms. So we try to help each other with that, right? For males, I think locker room talk or about sex is you're always saying how great you are at it, and you're never going to openly admit if you have a challenge. So you don't get that help from your friends because everyone wants to act like they have it all figured out and they already know. And unfortunately, we're not given the right education about sex and what we can possibly experience in our bodies when we're younger. So then we go look at porn to learn, and that dumbs us down and limits us. And you're not even able to experience what you think. You're dumbing yourself down with that. You know what I mean? And you're not getting the right education. And it's not to shame anyone for that. Of course, if no one else is going to talk to you, you're going to go look at that to figure it out. But there's so many ways that you can be empowered through this energy. And there's so much gold here for you and buried treasure within you that we just want to unlock. And it's not that you are broken or not a good lover or something's wrong with you. It's there's so much amazingness that is just there under the surface that we just want to bring up and get away the things that are blocking what intimacy blocks you have, what pleasure blocks, or how have you learned or not learned about female anatomy and pleasure and how to be the best lover. What is it that women want? Because if you think porn is what women want, I'm friends with I would be on her show on Playboy Radio a lot. And I'm friends with a porn star that's been in the Hall of Fame for porn. She's been a porn star for decades, over 20 years, maybe 30 years now. And she would say, when she would talk about porn, she wouldn't even consider that she had sex. She would be like, oh, that's just cardio with penetration. That's what she'll call it. She wouldn't even think of herself as having sex, because that's not how she likes to have sex. It's acting. Yeah. But then we think the women are acting like they're having so much pleasure, and then males are like, oh, that's what women want, but it's not what women want. So I would just want to empower you to understand more what women want and uncover the things that are blocking you. And when I work with women, I ask them to have a lot of compassion for males, because I'm like, the patriarchal society hasn't just repressed females, it's repressed males. And then males, I go, there's so many, I would rather deal with this. I'm not saying women don't have their challenges, right? But I tell my clients, I would rather have the challenges that I have, because one, if I get pregnant, I know it's mine. So fine. You know what I mean? I can control the pregnancy more sometimes, because sometimes women will say they're on the pill when they're not, and then men end up having a baby, right? There's things, or then they have to worry about their size or how long they last. There's all this pressure to perform. For me, I'm like, I could be 80 years old and just squirt some lube on it and open my legs and fake it till I make it. We can get the party started without me being fully aroused, and then
Yeah.
I can get aroused, right? Where
Uh-huh.
males, it's like you need to be fully aroused to even
And
start going.
yeah.
Right. And so it puts a lot of pressure, and then you get overthinking in your mind, and then that's literally cock blocking yourself. Right. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to help you to empower you to work past those blocks. And if you read the book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, in the
Yes.
1930s, chapter 11 is titled The Mystery of Sexual Transmutation. And these techniques were used by Nikola Tesla, Steve Jobs, Thomas Edison to tap into their creative genius. But they don't, back in the 1930s, they couldn't talk about what exactly was done. I teach those techniques. And it's true that Nikola Tesla did spend time in India. I believe he learned Tantra there, but it's a way of channeling your sexual energy and not constantly draining your life force energy through frequent ejaculation, and actually empowering yourself and tapping into your creative genius by having this mastery over your sexual energy. And how we do one thing is how we do everything. So how we show up in the bedroom is how we show up in the boardroom. So the success in the bedroom is a success out in the world. So let's tap into your pure potential of pleasure and that, and how amazing you are. And conscious cock is medicine. And like, women need that kind of, we need that medicine, we want to be injected with it.
Yes.
Give us our daily dose, right? So then there's the more peace, and it's not the battle of the sexes. I'm like, we should have empathy for the other and understand men have their challenges too. They have to be the provider. They have to be strong, not show emotion. They're humans having a human experience.
Uh-huh.
So allow them and see that this thing of always having figured everything out and can't display any weakness is BS. And we need to like let that go and just help each other heal.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the patriarchal society that's been created, because, people, as much as they blame men and, women, fear going, not being able to walk, and, which I like, what would I say? I
Yeah,
hold compassion for that, which is
sure.
100%. But when you go deeper, like when you have a lady or a woman on the side of a bus in a bikini when she's modeling for a toothpaste advert, or all of these social media, the scrolls, the same for the women, and then this toxic environment of getting pummeled with alcohol and drugs, and you're not good enough if you can't do X, Y, and Z, and then the pillar of society, and then the fear of if you're weak if you speak type of thing. So men hold that shame around not being able to hold it together in the bedroom, or control their emotion, or be tough, a masculine man, what a lot of men believe to
Right.
be holding it all together, but holding this masculinity. So just to highlight the level of pressure, like it's no accident that the statistics in men and women in regards to suicide are the way they are. I believe they used to be 4-1. Now, I heard Casey, one of our colleagues, mention it's now 6-1, or it's up around there. So, just for everybody to come into that awareness of, instead of vilifying men, maybe ask what it is that they actually need, or if
Yeah.
there's a conversation that they actually would like to share, because speak it into, not speak it into existence, but speak it and release it. And
Mhm.
we got to feel, we got to feel it to heal it. So yeah, instead of vilifying, maybe ask what's going on under the surface, and recognize what's really going on a energetic and a patriarchal system.
Right. And how that is impacting them emotionally. And
Hmm.
instead of like men versus women,
Hmm.
can it be us coming together instead of having like the battle of the sexes? Can it be us coming together to have compassion for one another and be like, oh, I didn't understand that this impacted you this way, and this is how you've been hurting, and where you need to be seen or held, or this is what you're working on to overcome that, and this is how this has impacted me. And so long, often we enter relationships with these wounds we haven't talked about, and then we end up touching those wounds with the other person, not knowing those wounds are there, and we trigger that person, we don't even know why, and then we start having all these conflicts in our relationship because we want to keep wearing the masks and the armor and pretend we don't have the wounds underneath and we're not paying attention to it, but it will surface and it will bleed into your relationships, right? And so you don't want to do that, and you want to be like, okay, how did that hurt you, or how were you hurt when you were growing up, or how did your parents, your mother or father, hurt you or make you feel not seen, and how can I be aware of that or be sensitive to that as I am in relationship with you, right? So that I don't do things that can trigger that in you, and I can offer you compassion around these things too, so we can start to like have healthier relationships and
Yeah.
encourage each other to be on our healing journey.
And healing also, because part of speaking is releasing again, and because it's not very comfortable to have these conversations at the start, now
Right.
it's like, look at the conversation we're having here. But a perfect example of this would be your client, the 60-year-old couple, where
Yeah.
he believed, Western medicine, this is the answer to his erectile issues, when in reality it was like his childhood trauma and how everything he had stored in his body over his lifetime. So just to highlight that for all of the listeners, it's what's going on under the surface that needs to be addressed. It's not a Panadol or a fucking Viagra, or the
Yeah.
surface level stuff. So
Yeah.
just quickly,
I want to add to
yeah,
that just
go
real quick
ahead.
if I can, but I'll be real
Yeah.
quick with that. Tantra, we take everything slow. So
Yeah, I'm not in a rush. I could
okay,
speak to
okay,
you for hours. Are
okay, I'm
you
good.
exactly? Yeah. How
I'm
pushed
good.
are you for time? You're good.
No, I'm good. I'm good. We
All
can
right.
go like even another 30 minutes if you need. I'm good.
Yeah. Let's
Uh,
see where we end up.
okay. So what I want to share is that like when you take a medication, there's always side effects of the
Yeah.
medication as well. So also in addition to that, I also want to teach my clients with Tantra practices and rituals how to tap into your sexual energy, how to strengthen your pelvic floor and your pelvic floor muscles to strengthen your erections. Some of my clients will even notice that they have an increase in size because we're doing things to increase your blood flow to your sex organs. Your body is the instrument to feel to experience pleasure. So then I'm looking, since I'm also a nurse, I'm looking at a 360 approach to my clients, and also looking at how can you optimize your nutrition and other things within your health so you're having a different experience within your body. And then mentally with your mind, where is your mind blocking you? And so with neuroplasticity, so we're working on all these things, and then the emotions and the things that fears that might be coming up or the pressures that might be coming up, and working through all of those things together to empower you to have a completely different experience, an experience that you probably never thought would be possible. And it can be challenging because I can work with so many men, and I have, work with celebrities or professional athletes, everything, but they don't always want to talk about it. Because then again, it's that shame of like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to, I'm good in bed. Like, I don't like, it's not like I'm lame or something. I don't like need this. And
The
it can be an
shame.
ego hit to be like, I don't need
Yeah.
a
Then
sex
the
coach. I don't need a sex coach. That's for someone who doesn't know anything about what they're doing, but we can always level up. And it's not about competing with anyone else. It's like, even on my growth journey, how I'm not competing. Comparison is a thief of joy. I'm not competing with someone else. I'm competing with who I was yesterday. And I have a growth mindset, and what can I do to improve my life? And then if we circle back to narcissism within coaching, one of the big things with Tantra that I teach my clients first is Pink Tantra focuses on, which is self-love and with the heart chakra, and doing mirror work with affirmations and giving yourself self-love. And so often in society, when we start loving ourselves or believing in ourselves, society wants to label that as being narcissistic. It's not. It's actually healthy for us to have a healthy relationship with ourselves. Because if we can't relate to ourselves in a healthy way, if we can't be loving to ourselves, if we can't be respectful to ourselves, we're not going to be able to do that with another. So it first starts with this relationship with self, and it's not narcissistic. We need to let that go because that's limiting us. We're like, oh, if I focus on myself. So often with coaching, people will spend so much money on other things that don't even matter. They don't even have to be
yes.
with them through their lives, and they can spend money on that. Or if it's like, oh, well, if my friend needed this money for that, or if my child needed this money for that, I would justify that. And if they wanted to do that, I would support them. But when it comes to me, This is selfish. I should be looking out for my family first. I should be looking out
Uh-huh.
for other people first. No, if you would put yourself first, all of your relationships would flourish. Your family and friends will be thanking you because you would start to, we can't pour from an empty cup. We can't give love from scarcity. If you don't have that for yourself and know how to source it from yourself, your relationships will suffer. So it's actually, like Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. Or Mother Teresa, if we would just sweep our own front porch and our doorstep, the whole world could change. So to be the change you want to see in the world, focus on changing yourself and entering the world and radiating, like letting your light shine and being a beacon of light for others and showing people what it's like to have healthy boundaries and love and to be able to give love from a healthy way and stop resenting or approaching everything from a victim mindset. That's what I like to share.
Yes, incredible. Like that was absolute gold. Thank you, Dom. And just to highlight again, people I only posted about this the other day, an iPhone $1,000 to start a business, can't afford it. $1,000 for an iPhone, no problem. Netflix is not $17 a month or whatever it is. It's costing you like 20 hours a month of your life, your time, which is
Yeah.
the most valuable commodity on the planet. So
Well, we
on
don't
one
get we
side,
don't get time back. We get money back, but
no,
we don't get time back.
yes, we can always make money, and we never get time back. Like, and what I say about that is, what was it? Time, spend it wisely. Time is, yeah, something like that. Spend it wisely. But uh, what I was getting at here is, people, as you've spoken to, once you do the work on you, if you want to change the world, start by changing yourself. Um, how that affects everybody around you, just your energy and what you exude when you go into a room and the people you speak to and the people you meet. Like, I go to some places and, you know, people will come over out of the blue at parties or dinners or whatever it is and just like go bang, zone in. And I would have never met them before and just go, right, and they start telling me the whole life story and have a little breakdown and all of the things. And I wouldn't have like I would have just said hello to them. I wouldn't have known them. This one girl in particular is coming up in my mind as I say this, and I don't know why that is. Why people come and do that. It's happened on many occasions throughout my life, but and then she apologized at the end, saying, I actually don't know why, but something gave me a push that I need to speak to you."
Wow.
And again, they didn't know that I was a coach, and at that time I wasn't a coach when these things used to happen, and people used to have that. So just in regards to doing the inner work on yourself, it's really, really important, not just to you, because when you're saying you're saving money to look after X, Y, and Z, like in regards to relationships in your family, when you pour that investment into yourself, all of those people reap the benefits of that.
Yes. Yes.
So thanks
Yeah,
for
because
highlighting that. Yeah,
yeah,
go.
because the relationship we have with ourselves is the mirror for all the other relationships around us. So I saw that my relationships with my coworkers
Hmm.
improved, with my friends, with my lovers, with my family, everything across the board improved once I because how are we showing up in relationship? And the relationship you have with yourself is so important because guess what? You are your longest lasting relationship. You are with yourself in relationship from your first breath to your last breath. No one
Hmm.
spends as much time in relationship with you as you do. You should invest in that relationship. But so often we'll be like, oh, I'll do this for my lover. I'll do this for someone else. And we keep like prioritizing everyone else and putting ourselves at the bottom of the list. And it's important that we prioritize our pleasure, that we put ourselves first. And then we show people, we raise the bar. When we raise the bar that way, we show people that we we expect for them to treat us in a better way too, and we start attracting people that know how to treat us better by first us treating ourselves better, because like attracts like. So a better lover, be your own best lover, and then you start to attract better lovers, because we're all energetic beings and magnetic, and like attracts like. And if you want higher vibrational experiences, lovers, etc., friendships, then you need to raise your vibration. And instead of trying to control everything around you, no, watch your energy and who you be and be in alignment, and let that radiate outwards. And then you'll start to attract and become the super attractor for all the things that you're wanting, and things can flow to you so much easily. So we need to stop forcing and making things happen, and it'll get into a flow and into our flow state.
Yes, incredible. Dominic, you mentioned about, overcoming PE and ED with Tantra. Can you yeah, go a little deeper into that? What is PE and ED, first of all?
Okay.
And yeah, take it from
Sure,
there.
of course. PE is premature ejaculation.
Uh-huh.
And so whenever we're with neuroplasticity and creating new pleasure pathways, I'm teaching my clients how to prolong the pleasure and how to last longer, but also stay connected. Because if you're just thinking of math equations in your head so you last longer with your partner, you're not having intimacy and dropping in, being connected. You're overthinking your head. You're not really fully present, right?
Mm-hmm.
But being able to have the confidence.
Yes.
And so then you're lasting as long as you're lasting as long as you and your lover want you to last, and then you're able to experience more pleasure, and it takes the pressure off of you so you can really be more present and dropped in. And then ED is the erectile dysfunction, when you have challenges with erection. So even when I work with clients that are in their 20s or 30s and they may not be having those challenges, the techniques that I'm teaching them help them through their lifetime, their lifespan. So when they are facing 50, 60, 70, and they're concerned, oh, I don't want to have erectile dysfunction, they're already going to have started training their body and preparing their body. It's like a real peak performance so that they don't have that as those challenges as they age as well. So these skills help you throughout your lifespan.
Incredible. And like sexual health and wellness, I think we might have breezed over that throughout the conversation, but what would you speak into that?
Sexual health and wellness. Just knowing more about your body, what your hormone levels are, having what is your emotional body, your energetic body, because we know we have a physical body, right?
Uh-huh,
So we
uh-huh.
look at like on a physical level, what is my sexual I'll have to be, but what is your emotional body? How is that impacting your sex life? Your energetic body, do you have blocks in your energy centers? Are you disconnected from your sexual power? Do you have shame about it? Do you think it's wrong or bad? Are you judging yourself? Or are you afraid? Are you fearful of having intimacy because you've had unhealthy relationships, or you've been heartbroken by a past lover, the mother, the father, and you don't feel like you can count on anyone? So you're avoidant and you pull back, and you
Mm-hmm.
really don't know how to connect. Like all of these things go into, like, to me, your sexual health and wellness. And so, knowing like how to optimize your body, how to, increase your blood flow to your sex organs, how to eat for experiencing more pleasure, and just how to fuel your body so that you can experience peak performance both inside and outside the bedroom, so you show up in the world as your most powerful and empowered self.
Wow. It's incredibly deep, and it's interesting to see how it's connected to the flow of our, like, all areas of life.
Yeah, and I'm curious, like, so we've been in spaces where we've coached people, and we've been in spaces that we've been coached. We've had amazing coaches. You and I both really believe in the value of investing in ourselves, right?
Uh-huh.
But in the way that, from what you see on social media, and like whenever we've been in conversations, now that we've had this deep conversation, what's like a big aha moment or something that I do that you were like clueless about, like that you wouldn't think Tantra was about, now that we've had the
Um,
conversation? I'm just curious, just to ask you.
so for me, the Kundalini and the chakras, and
Yeah.
the 5 hours of pleasure, and being in a meditative state, as disconnecting the organ from the
Mm-hmm.
mind,
Yes.
because and then I get as you spoke about that, I got like, as like that was a huge aha moment, because
Right.
sometimes playing sport, or other things, when you panic rush into things, you mistake it. And in
Mm-hmm.
regards to being in the bedroom, that's premature ejaculation, really, isn't it? It's like when the mind speeds up to, oh, I need to do this and that. And yeah, just the 5 hours of pleasure, and being able to be in that sort of meditative flow state.
Yeah. It's like an
And
orgasmic meditation in a way.
yeah, and also and like, the same as part of that, like what you what landed for you after that was, was the same for me after when I worked with Preston and Alexi, who are, our mentors. Just a shout out to them. And when I came out of the bridge experience, and the bridge extreme, which was like 2 days and then 3 days of fucking again experiential learning for energetically,
Mm-hmm.
beyond the mind, before, like, you're going into the body and the body is telling the story over the mind. I came out of there and I was like, oh my god, why the fuck are people suffering in the world when we've got these tools at our disposal? Why does the world not have these tools? Like, why are people unconscious to this? And I just witnessed the biggest transformations from the most hurtful traumas that I've ever heard. Well, I've heard a few now, but
Yeah.
at that time, so like that was part of my awakening, and also me, like, I wasn't looking for my purpose, but it landed for me in that moment. I was like, I need to share these tools with the world.
Yes. Yes.
So resonating with you getting there from a different what's it called, a
A different
different,
way.
yeah, a different way, or a different skill, or whatever you'd call it, a different way anyways. And just coming to that realization as well, that this is true healing energy and healing power that gave
Mhm.
you, you know this energetic life into everywhere in life. And so from you being a nurse and always wanting to care for people and help people, and then the same with the bondage BDSM thing where you didn't want to hurt people. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, to witness how you arrived into that was like, yeah, that was my aha moment. I wasn't educated on that.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. Because sometimes when I'm on podcast interviews, they don't know of me before. So I was
Mm-hmm.
just curious, like, what you had gleaned from like our interactions
Mm.
previously. So that's really cool. And then, I say I went from saving lives to saving sex lives. And then the other thing is just, it's like, I think that for me to have me too, when I saw these healing tools and it was and powerful, I was like, why aren't we taught these things in school? Why didn't we receive
Hmm.
this in sex education? It's like in school, we're programmed to think small and be robots and be good, like
Yes.
good robots in society. We're not taught to really be fully empowered into ourselves. And
Hmm.
so we're just kind of programmed in a way. And TV programming does the same thing, right? So then I was like, why don't more people know about this? And so that's really been passionate for me. And then I laugh that, I'm Scorpio. Scorpios are like the sex sign of the zodiac. I, was like really in this like very sexual thing of my life. Like what was the Adamant song from back in the day? Don't drink, don't smoke. What do you do? Like I didn't drink or smoke or do drugs, but sex was like my drug. Like sex is like I felt really powerful in that, and I was really good at it. And so, that was my jams. And then I think the universe is like, oh my gosh, the only way we're going to get this person, this soul to wake up, it has to be through sex. Like she's not going to pay attention to it. We try to throw her
Yes.
signs. We try to
Yes.
throw her signals. She is just like not paying attention. And so it has to be through this modality that she wakes up. Right. So I know
Hmm.
that Tantra is more than sex. And so
Hmm.
sometimes when I'm sharing in social media and post, people will be like, because I'll talk about sexual things and people will be like, well, Tantra is more than sex. I get that. But again, we go back to the thing of sex sells. And so
Primitive nature as well.
sometimes people need to talk about that to get their attention. And then when we work together, we go deep. We're like,
Yes.
what is your self-love like? And we're diving in deep and they're like, like, I didn't even know this was here for me. And that's so much fun. So sometimes it's like the bait that you put on the hook when you're fishing. It's like, oh, sex, you want better sex. But then it's like, when I get you, it's like, oh, but all of this is here available for
Well,
you
yeah.
too, that you had no idea was holding you and tripping you up. And we're gonna face off on all those things that have been having you play small.
Yeah, and I'll just highlight as well, Preston, one of our again, our mentor, it's like sell them what they want and give
Mm-hmm.
them what they need. And again,
Exactly.
just bring it back to your real life experience with your client and the Viagra. He thinks he needs Viagra for better sex, and when in reality it's the energetics and the blockages from his childhood trauma that's under the surface. So, you know, in the whole, again, the like the coaching industry, which is fairly new in the world, and it's like, on one front, it's like the iceberg analogy as well. It's like people are
Mm-hmm.
coming in for this thing and they don't realize it's like
Go so deep.
so deep in order to arrive into mastery of whatever that top thing is.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely thanks for sharing. I had a question there that just slipped me as you spoke, but Dominique,
And take some deep breaths. It might pop in.
yeah, um, yeah, it'll come back to me. Just in regards to, yeah, where will people find you? Let me see, make sure I don't miss it. Yeah, I think it was more about the same with the Kundalini energies, the chakras, the meditation during, your awakening,
Yeah.
spiritually
Yeah.
through sex. And yeah, it was just the importance of, or is there not an easy way into that, but is there, the step? What would be the first step on that ladder?
Yeah. Initially, like whenever I started this, it actually Tantra kind of fucked up my sex life because then I understood the energetics and I realized I couldn't put a bar on someone and protect myself from their bad vibes. So
Mm.
I like actually took a period. I actually took a period of celibacy and just like started working on healing the relationship with myself with Tantra. So that then I started attracting better relationships doing that. So, yeah, it is about sex, but it's so much more than that. And then the other thing is like people can find me through my website,
Yes.
yestantra.com, on social media, on Clubhouse. It's at Yes Tantra, YouTube, Yes Tantra. And on Instagram, all my links and stuff are in my bio. And I also have master classes, replays that people can watch. I have a female orgasm masterclass. And I just created an intro to Tantra course, which is a 6-week course that you have lifetime access to, of me coaching and online modules. So if you're not quite ready to take the leap of having one-to-one coaching or group coaching with me, this is a way that you can be coached and start applying these tools and have these tools for your own transformation. And so that's available as well. And so if anyone wants to dive in deep and see about being coached by me, you can request a complimentary discovery call and we'll just dive in deeper and see what are your blocks or your challenges, if any, or just where are you wanting to level up and what are you wanting to experience. And so I help everyone from like females having, I say I'm the orgasm whisperer. I help them have better orgasms, or if they've never had orgasms with a partner before. A lot with self-love, manifestation, and just attracting more abundance in your life by being, raising your vibration, because you become this magnet for everything, and you amplify your law of attraction abilities with Tantra as well.
So good, man. So good. Dominique, it's been incredible chatting with you. Thank you
Yes. Thank you
very,
so
very
much.
much for your time. And we close out with everybody. What does the waves of change mean to you?
Oh, that's a good question. The waves of change. I think sometimes waves of change require us to make waves. And in a society when people are like talking about, even for me to try to talk about sex and sexuality even on Instagram, they're like, oh, this doesn't meet community guidelines. I'm like, well, if it wasn't for sex you wouldn't even have a community. There would be no community here, right? So it's just like,
it's, it's
and it's
so
like,
so true.
and it's so bizarre that people are like, oh, I can watch a movie with violence and people being shot and killed and blood, and my kids can be in the room when I watch that. But if there's something with a nude body or about intimacy or people making love, like, oh my God, like, oh no, they can't see that. It's the end of the world. But that's like really, we're really created from this energy, right? So it's about like getting people to be comfortable with the things that maybe they've been programmed to think should make them uncomfortable. Because I
Mm,
think if you when I look at shame, let's say this, on the emotional frequency scale, we're all different emotions have a different vibration. And on a hertz level, the lowest vibration of all emotions is shame at 20 hertz. It's even below anger and fear. The
mm,
highest vibration of love, joy, bliss, and enlightenment is from 500 to 700 hertz on the frequency scale. So if our society is programmed to have shame about their sexual energy, their life force energy, literally you can focus this not to just to create a human life, but to focus it with sexual transmutation into creating the life your heart desires, right? When you're disempowered and you feel like your sexual energy or your turn on is wrong and makes you bad and you feel guilty, you're in such a low vibrational state that you're easier to control and manipulate, and you're not fully empowered. And so what you want to do then is create the waves of being like making people talking about the things that are a little uncomfortable, so then they can have the awareness and maybe a new understanding of it.
Wow.
So, and that can help creating change and leaders go first. Like, we can have these uncomfortable conversations so that other people can have an aha moment or a new level of awareness and realize what their full possibility that is awaiting them to experience.
Yes, thank you very much. And for anybody who's listening, Dominique has given me loads of little juicy gifts and all sorts of beautiful, incredible things, and I will link them all below. And
Awesome.
yeah, thank you very much again.
You're so welcome.
It's been incredible. Good luck.
Yes. All right. Have an amazing day. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If anything resonated for you, please leave a comment below. If there's anyone who may need to hear, please share. I love this. Have a lovely day.